The morning I couldn't get up off the kitchen floor, I was 78 years old, and I had been on it for about 4 minutes. Not fallen, just sat down to pick up something I'd dropped, a dish towel, of all things. And then I couldn't make myself stand back up. Not because anything was broken. My legs just didn't answer. And I sat there in that kitchen, the one I've cooked in for 40 years, and I thought, this is it. This is what disappearing feels like. My name is Annie Mae Carter. I'm 81, and I want to talk to you about food. Not the way doctors talk about it. Not the way they do on those television programs with the blenders and the powders. The way I lived it, the way it nearly took something from me I didn't even know I was losing. I grew up in a house where food meant something. Not nutrition, not macros. Food meant somebody loves you enough to stand over a hot stove in August. My mother, Ruth, she never sat down. Not that I remember. She was always moving, a pot here, a dish there. And the food that came out of that kitchen was heavy and real and warm. Cornbread with a crust on the bottom from the cast iron. Collard greens cooked down with fatback until they were silk. Fried chicken on Sundays. Sweet potato pie at Christmas that would make you close your eyes without meaning to. We were working people. There were 6 of us children, and money was close, and food was how my mother said things she didn't have words for. I carried that into my own kitchen. Married Earl when I was 21, and I cooked for him the way my mother had cooked for my father. Big, filling, nothing wasted. 6 children of my own eventually. Sunday dinners that lasted all afternoon. Macaroni and cheese with the crispy top. Biscuits, gravy, cakes from scratch for birthdays. This was love. This was how I knew how to love people. For a long time, my body didn't argue with me about any of it. I was on my feet all day. I had children to chase and a husband who worked long hours and a house that needed keeping. The food got burned off. I didn't think about it as fuel. I didn't think about it much at all. It was just what you did. You cooked. You ate. You kept going. Then Earl passed. That was the first shift, though I didn't name it then. I was 64. And somewhere in the years after that, the food stayed the same, but everything else changed. I wasn't on my feet all day anymore. The children had grown and scattered. The grandchildren, 11 of them now, came in waves, not daily. The house got quieter, and the food that had always been my love language started leaving marks. Not right away, slowly, the way watermarks don't. By the time I was 75, I was tired in a way I couldn't sleep off. That's the only way I know to describe it. Not sleepy tired, heavy tired. Like there was something draped over me by mid-afternoon that I couldn't shake loose. My knees talked to me every morning. My thinking felt like it was moving through something thick. I'd walk into a room and forget why I was there, and that had happened before. Everybody does that, but this felt different. This felt structural, like the building was settling in ways it shouldn't. My doctor was a careful woman, not unkind, and she sat across from me one November, and she said my blood sugar was doing things that concerned her. Not diabetes, not yet, but she used the word pre-diabetic, and I remember how the room felt when she said it. Small. I felt the room go small. She gave me papers with charts and food pyramids and things to reduce and limit and avoid. I took them home and put them on the kitchen table, and I read every word. And then I made the worst decision of the next 3 years. I decided to stop. Just stop. Cold turkey on everything I associated with comfort. The bread, the rice, the sweet tea I drunk my whole life, the cornbread, the potatoes, the pie. If it was starchy or sweet, it left my kitchen. I was going to be disciplined about it the way I'd been disciplined about everything else in my life. I'd raised 6 children. I had buried my husband and not collapsed. I could give up sweet tea. For about 2 weeks, the numbers on the little meter they gave me looked better. I showed my daughter Angela over the phone and she said, "Mama, that's great. Keep going." And I tried, but I was dizzy. Not fall down dizzy, just slightly unmoored. Like the floor was a half-inch lower than I expected it to be. My head felt hollowed out in a way that made reading difficult. And I was short with people, with Denise down the street when she came to check on me, with my grandson when he called. Not mean, just thin, like there wasn't enough of me to spare any. One afternoon, my oldest, Marcus, drove up from Savannah for a weekend visit, and I made dinner, and he ate, and then he said carefully, the way he always says careful things, "Mama, are you all right? You seem a little, I don't know, off." I told him I was fine. Of course, I said I was fine. "You don't seem like yourself," he said. "I'm exactly like myself," I said. "I'm just not eating sugar." He nodded like he understood, but I could see he wasn't sure he did. And the truth was, I wasn't sure either, because I had removed everything I associated with comfort, and what I was left with was a kind of gray. The food had no joy in it. I was eating plain chicken and plain vegetables, and I was surviving them the way you survive a waiting room, just getting through it. The cost of that first failure was this. I had traded blood sugar for something else I didn't have a word for, some kind of interior light that had gone dim. I should tell you, somewhere in all of this, I spent 2 weeks convinced that a green powder you mixed into water was going to fix everything. It tasted the way I imagined lawn clippings would taste if someone charged you $40 for them. I drank it every morning with the expression of a woman doing penance. My cat Biscuit would look at me from across the kitchen with what I can only describe as pity. My daughter Angela is my youngest, and she has always been the most certain of my children. Certain about everything, passionate the way some people are, the way that can be wonderful and also exhausting when you are 80 years old and just trying to get through Tuesday. Angela had found a meal delivery program. She called it a lifestyle reset. She was very excited about it. "Mama, they design it specifically for metabolic health. It's all balanced. You don't have to think about it at all." The box arrived. It was cold packed in a foam container the size of a small suitcase, and the portions were in little labeled bags, and there were instructions printed on cards. The food itself, I don't know how to say this gently, tasted like someone had described food to a person who had never eaten it. It was beige in a way that went beyond color. It was beige philosophically. I ate it for 11 days because I didn't want to hurt Angela's feelings and because it cost money, her money, which she had spent out of love, and I didn't say a word about it. I packed the little portions and I ate them at my kitchen table, and I looked out the window and I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Humiliated. That's the word. Sitting in my own kitchen, in a house I have lived in for 4 decades, eating food I didn't choose out of containers I didn't pack, feeling like I had lost something I couldn't get back, like I had been removed from my own life and placed in a waiting area. My numbers were not even better. They were about the same, and I was spending energy I didn't have pretending the food was fine, and pretending I was fine, and calling Angela to say, "Yes, it's going well, thank you, sweetheart." That's a particular kind of tired. The performance of being fine when you're not. I had done it my whole life. I thought I was done with it by 80. I wasn't done with it yet. By early spring of that year, I had stopped cooking altogether. Not on purpose. It just stopped. I'd open the refrigerator and close it again. I'd eat crackers standing at the counter. I'd make toast and call it dinner. Some days I'd realize at 3 in the afternoon that I hadn't eaten anything real, and I'd have half a can of something cold, and that would be that. I was sitting in my front room one evening, the room I barely use, the formal one, the one with the good sofa that I keep for company, and I don't know why I went in there. Maybe I just needed a different chair. The light was going outside, and I was sitting with my hands in my lap, and I felt, I want to say this exactly right, I felt like a person who had been reduced, like something had been taken out of me and not replaced, not sick. Not sad, exactly. Just less. I had started this whole thing because I was afraid of disappearing. And here I was, 3 years in, and I was more disappeared than when I started. I had removed so much. The foods I loved, the rituals I loved, the pleasure of feeding myself and others in service of numbers on a little meter. And the numbers weren't even that much better. I sat in that formal room in the going down light, and I thought, Ruth, my mother, she never ate like this. She cooked every day of her life until she couldn't stand any more. She cooked with lard and she cooked with salt, and she died at 83, and she was sharp until the last year. And I am sitting here at 78 eating crackers from a box, and I can't get up off my kitchen floor. Something was wrong with my thinking. I just didn't know yet what the right thinking was. Denise knocked on my door on a Thursday. She works nights at the hospital and has 3 days off midweek, and she checks on me more than I ever asked her to. She's 45, raising her daughter Kayla alone, and she has more on her plate than checking on an old woman down the street, but she does it anyway without making a production of it. That's a kindness I've come to appreciate. She had a container in her hand. Not a fancy container. A regular plastic one, the kind you buy at the dollar store, snap lid. I made too much, she said, which I don't believe was entirely true, but that's what she said. Inside was a simple thing. Sauteed spinach with garlic and a little olive oil, still warm. Some hard-boiled eggs she'd packed separately. A small container of something that turned out to be plain Greek yogurt with a handful of blueberries stirred in. Nothing elaborate. Nothing labeled or portioned or philosophically beige. I sat down at my kitchen table, the kitchen table where I'd eaten my crackers, and closed the refrigerator and called it getting by. And I ate what she brought. The spinach was earthy and soft, and the garlic had gone golden in the oil, and it tasted like something a person had made with actual attention. The eggs were cold and simple. The yogurt was tart, and the berries were sweet enough that the sweetness felt like a small gift. I sat there and I ate all of it, and I started to cry a little. Not dramatically. Just quietly, the way you cry when something gets released that you didn't know was held. I don't know if it was the food exactly. I think it was the gesture. I think it was someone saying, without saying it, you are worth feeding. I asked Denise the next time she came by what else she cooked. She's not from the South. She grew up in Baltimore, and her food is different from mine, but not foreign. She talked about sardines, which made me raise an eyebrow. She said she ate them on things, with things, just opened the tin and ate them plain sometimes. Said her grandmother ate them her whole life and had good joints until she was 90. I had not eaten a sardine since I was a child, when my father would eat them from a tin with crackers and my mother would make a face. I bought a tin. I felt slightly ridiculous buying a tin of sardines at 80 years old, like I was trying to be someone I wasn't. I ate them at my kitchen table on a Tuesday afternoon. They tasted of the sea, strong and real and not trying to be anything other than what they were. Something about that appealed to me. I started, slowly, to cook again. Not the old way, not the new way either, just my way. I made eggs in the morning, scrambled, sometimes fried, sometimes just 2 boiled eggs with a handful of spinach on the side. I ate walnuts in the afternoon when I wanted something to hold in my hand. There's something about the texture of a walnut, the resistance of it, the way it breaks, the bitterness that turns rich, that satisfied something in me that the crackers never had. My neighbor Kayla, she's 10, Denise's daughter. Quiet child, she calls me Miss Annie. She came with her mother one Saturday, and I had salmon in the oven. Just a piece of salmon with a little lemon and olive oil, nothing more. Kayla stood in my kitchen doorway and said, "Miss Annie, it smells really good in here." I can't tell you how much that meant to me. It smells really good in here. My kitchen smelling like food again, like someone lived in it. I had started putting cabbage into things. Sauteed it in a pan the way you do collard greens, low and slow with a little olive oil and some onion, and it turned sweet and golden at the edges. Cabbage costs almost nothing. I'd grown up eating it poor, and I'd stopped eating it when I could afford not to. The way you do with things that remind you of hard times. I brought it back. It tasted like sense. I found almonds. Not the salted kind from a party bowl, but plain ones, and I kept them in a small dish on the counter, and I ate a few when I passed. Small things, real things. I made a salad one afternoon with avocado, and I cut it open, and the color of it, that green so deep it's almost yellow at the center. I just stood there and looked at it for a moment. ran a spoon through the flesh, and ate it plain, right there over the sink, the way you eat something when you're not performing, eating for anyone, you're just eating. It was buttery and cool, and it tasted expensive without costing much. I ate salmon twice a week. I started looking forward to it. That was the sign I paid attention to, looking forward to something. That feeling had been absent for a long time, long enough that when it came back, I almost didn't recognize it. The yogurt Denise had brought me became a morning habit. Plain Greek yogurt, tart and thick with whatever berries I had, blueberries, strawberries when they were cheap, blackberries sometimes. The berries so dark they left color on my fingers. I'd eat it at the table by the window, and in the spring, the yard was doing what yards do in spring, and I'd sit there and eat my yogurt and berries and watch the light change in the magnolia tree my husband Earl planted the year our third child was born. My energy, I notice it most in the morning now. There's about an hour in the early morning before the neighborhood wakes up, when the house is quiet and the light is coming in from the east, and I sit in my kitchen with my coffee and my eggs, and I want to be careful with this word, I feel present, like I'm in the room all the way. My knees still talk to me. I want to be honest. I am 81 and my knees are going to talk to me. But there's a difference between the talking and the shouting. It went back to talking. My thinking cleared. Not all the way, not like I was 50 again. But the fog, the thick feeling, the moving through something that lifted some. Enough that I noticed the absence of it. The meter, the blood sugar meter, my numbers moved. Not dramatically. Not in a way I could write a book about, but moved in the right direction and stayed there. My doctor, the careful woman, she looked at them in December and she said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Marcus came back in the fall and I made dinner, and he sat at my kitchen table and ate salmon with sautéed spinach, and there was a bowl of walnuts on the table because I keep them there now just to have them. And he looked around and he said, "Mama, you seem like yourself again." I said, "I am myself again," and he nodded the way he does. My steady oldest boy. He doesn't need much more than that. Neither do I. Kayla came over last week with a drawing she made at school. She stood in my kitchen doorway the way she always does, like she's not entirely sure she's allowed in, and she held it out to me. It was a house with a figure in the window. She said it was my house. She said the figure was me. I put it on my refrigerator, next to the photo of Earl and the magnet from my granddaughter's school trip to D.C. Some mornings I stand in my kitchen and I look at that drawing, little yellow square of window, little figure inside it, and I think about being here. The specific miracle of being here, in this kitchen, this light, this morning. I'm 81 years old and my kitchen smells like food again. I can get up off the floor. I sat down with Denise last Tuesday, and we had scrambled eggs and strong coffee, and the morning was cold and bright, and Kayla was doing homework at the table, and none of us said much because we didn't need to. That's the thing about being this age. You learn finally what requires words and what doesn't. A warm egg, a handful of dark berries, the light through the kitchen window, and someone sitting across from you who doesn't need you to perform anything. Gratitude doesn't always look like what they put on cards. Sometimes it looks like standing over the stove at 7 in the morning, listening to something sizzle in a pan, and knowing that you're still the one doing it, that you're still here to do it, that your legs answered this morning, that the light is coming in from the east and it's landing on the counter and it's making everything it touches look briefly golden. I'll take that. Every morning that I get it, I'll take it. Thank you for sitting with me today. I don't take it for granted, someone giving me their time. Come back whenever you want. I'll be here. Take care of yourself, whatever that means to you.